This isn't your average podcast.
Do you like party?
This is Full Send. Join the party.
So you guys launched the Nelk Love Island. Congrats, boys.
Who's that?
They got production, dude.
Like 5 years ago, we could do that easily and it'd be crazy when we're partying, but when you're like in your 30s a little bit.
Well, that's why you barely show up to set, day 2.
Just a few hours tardy.
Steiny wanted to be the host of the show, too. It's like, why didn't you let me be the host? It's like, bro, you showed up 6 hours late every day.
I had a girlfriend.
The Full Send podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
11 o'clock here on Three Man Front. Landrum Roberts, Conrad Van Order, Pat Smith back with us tomorrow. Molly back next week. Hope everybody is doing well. We got college football news we will get into, including somebody's put out the SEC's toughest schedules. We'll get into that, as well as some of the early looks as we're getting closer to the start of the college football season for each conference, Power 4 and non-Power 4, and what those look like, and who we could be talking about when it comes down to a 12-team college football playoff in December. Guy who is on the beat, ear to the ground, finger on the pulse. He is our own Dixie Whistler. It is Jeffrey Lee of On3, covering Auburn recruiting. Whistler. Did you guys used to shoot the Dixie Whistlers? Do they still have those? You could shoot them underwater at the lake. Man. Yeah.
Crazy Bills.
Crazy Bills. Yep. You get a bunch of Dixie Whistlers and Black Cats if you buy the artillery package, which I did one year and made the mistake and thought I gave somebody a heart attack in my neighborhood. That's why they tell you not to shoot them. How are you, Jeffrey?
Fairly well, man. How are you guys?
Doing great. You taking in a lot of the World Cup? I'm guessing you are.
No, I'm not.
I knew that was going to be the answer coming from you. Well, the United States, they play tomorrow. Did you watch any of the United States' first 2 matches?
I could not tell you one person from the United States soccer team.
Okay. Did you go to the Argentina friendly versus Iceland at Jordan-Hare?
When was that?
Okay. There we go.
I'm just kidding.
It's just recruiting. Just recruiting, baby.
He's got his head down.
Yeah, he does. I love it. All right, we got a lot to catch up on, Jeffrey. This staff, Alex Golesh, based on what you dealt with, and you dealt with some good folks and some good recruiters on Hugh Freeze's staff, what's been the biggest difference in what you've experienced so far?
Whew. You mean as far as coaches goes?
Yeah.
It's tough to say because this is such a different recruiting cycle than it's becoming than what we've seen in years past. Everybody wants to say, Auburn's got 24 commitments before July the 1st. Has that ever happened? No, but this kind of recruiting cycle's never happened. Everything's been moved up. Everything's been fast forwarded. The NIL era, the contract negotiations throughout May and June. I mean, everybody's getting a spot right now as quickly as possible. What we're seeing is more in tune to what we see in basketball, high school basketball recruiting, where guys that are going into their senior years are signing right now. They have the early signing period, and then they have the late signing period. And, the 2026 guys or the 2027 guys in high school basketball have already signed. And I think that's what we're kind of transitioning to in football. So it's a different cycle as far as, you can't be comparing numbers to, Hugh Freeze never had this many commitments at this early stage of the well, this cycle didn't exist. So everything's been fast forwarded. But to that point, I think this staff in probably 5 months has done more than I ever expected them to do. They came in, they put all their efforts and focus into the transfer portal. They didn't even turn the page to 2027 high school recruiting until the middle of January. And in that short amount of time, I think the return that they've got from these recruits has been exceptional. I don't think they even thought that the return, the logo, the program, the respect that Auburn still has, despite not having a winning record in 6 years. I think they were really surprised at the return they were getting from these recruits and the relationships that they were able to carry over from South Florida, from Tennessee, from even Alabama. Coach Cap there on the offensive line. So I think they were a little bit surprised at what they were getting back, the return from these kids, and in a small class ended up being a very large class, and probably will continue to grow throughout these months.
So kind of carrying on with that topic, Jeffrey, what would you say maybe from some of the things that these kids have said so far in the process of them being recruited and committing, has there been a difference in maybe the way that they're talking about Auburn or they're talking about this staff as opposed to the previous staff under Hugh Freeze? Has there been a difference there that you picked up on?
I think that a lot of people have known Golesh, at least going back, that he has a track record. He has an off-the-field track record that maybe coaches in the past did not have at Auburn. I think a lot of people see him. He's very involved in recruiting, not just in with the kid, but with the parents, with the coaches, with the teachers. And I think he's a very genuine guy. I think he's an easy guy to meet and instantly trust. He doesn't put up a front. He's just who he is. And that's kind of what their motto is, be who you say you are. And I think that starts at the top and trickles down onto his staff. And I've gotten to know these guys in the short amount of time that they've been here, and every one of them have that genuine appeal to them, that very relatable, not a salesman. And I've seen a lot of salesmen in the past working with these different staffs at Auburn. Hell, since 2004, there's been some great salesmen, don't get me wrong, and they've been able to recruit. But the type of guys that this staff is recruiting is a little bit different, and I love their motto. And as far as when it comes to recruiting, they want guys that want to be here at Auburn, and I think that says a lot about the guys that they're looking for. And you saw that with Kingston Miles, 2 weeks ago, 4-star running back from Missouri who was committed to Auburn, but was flirting with in-state Missouri, was taking official visits, and they were like, "Look, man, we want guys that want to be here." Monty Williams from Memphis wants to be here, and they dropped Kingston Miles and took Monty Williams, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing from this staff is guys like Rance Brown, Reed Ramsire, and Leighton Von Brandt, and Myson Johnson Cook. All these guys want to be at Auburn. Don't get me wrong; they're not coming here for free, but they're the kind of guys you want because retention is going to be important moving forward, and that's what they're looking for. Guys that they think they can be able to retain and develop, especially along the offensive line.
Hanging out with our friend Jeffrey Lee, a part of Auburn and On3 and covering recruiting there and heading things up, and does a wonderful job and has for a long time, and he joins us on the Higginbotham hotline. As far as maybe that guy who's only got 3 stars next to his name, maybe he's not the most highly touted. Who is maybe that unseen or unheralded guy right now that's committed to Alex Golesh in that staff that you could see becoming a star?
Two guys really stand out to me. Jalen Moore, 3-star offensive lineman from Creekside in Fairburn, Georgia. Got to see him last week at camp in one-on-ones, and he's going up against dudes. I'm not talking about, your second stringers from Cordova. I'm talking about dudes. Nehemiah McCrary, number 32 overall player in the 2028 class, so the number 2 linebacker in the country for next year. Jalen Moore held his own against him, held his own against another guy in 2028 top 50 overall player. I really like Jalen Moore. I think he's fantastic. Guys who know a lot more about the techniques of the offensive line vouch for me there. I can watch a guy and say, man, that guy's really good. I don't know why he's really good, but I know he's really good. Jalen Moore is a guy I'm keeping an eye on. I think Nash Johnson, the cornerback from McEachern in Atlanta, who is a former Alabama commitment. He's a 3-star, didn't go to any camps, hasn't been really seen outside of his junior film. But Auburn is extremely high on this guy and thinks he's a steal at a 3-star.
So, Jeffrey, you mentioned it earlier, but 24 commits right now for the class. Do you have a number in terms of how big this class could potentially get? How many additions could still be on the way, and maybe some of those names for Auburn fans to keep an eye on that could still join the 2027 class?
Yeah, I think, ideally Auburn would like to, at least right now. Now, don't get me wrong, this staff is all about some evals, and they will continue to eval practice footage. They'll eval everything. But assuming Auburn retains the 24 commitments they have right now, they certainly would like to add a Carlos May, the defensive lineman from there, and Ramsey. They definitely would like to add Marquise Evans, the defensive end from Spain Park. So you're up to 26 right now. I know they want another corner. That's 27. probably take at least one more safety. That's 28, and you get a Tay Walden if you can. So you're pushing 30 if the retention of this class is maintained. So it's going to be it's probably going to be 10 to 12 more guys than they originally thought. It's going to be a big class, and I think that they would like to possibly add another offensive lineman as well. So you're looking at 30 if, in fact, all these cats stay committed.
Jeffrey, what can you tell us? Can you tell us anything? And I guess it doesn't matter. He's no longer a part of the team, but any additional information you can pass along concerning former Auburn wide receiver Duke Smith, who is no longer a part of the football team?
I wish I did. I always, you hear different stories. You never hear straight from the truth. You can hear from a source at Auburn about what they want you to hear. Then you hear from Duke Smith's side about what they want you to hear. Basically, it wasn't a good fit. The new staff, Cody Burns, Duke Smith, it wasn't out. I think it came to a head last week, and said, "Look, we're done." And Duke Smith's side, wants to blame the staff. The staff is saying, "No, this is kind of what's happening here," and you never really know what's the truth. Probably somewhere in the middle, but basically, it comes down to wasn't a good fit with this staff, and both sides decided it was probably best to move on.
So going back to talking about the kind of the size of the recruiting class that they have right now, and I know it's different because it's year one. They got to bring in a lot of guys. They're trying to establish the culture. But from what you picked up so far, Jeffrey, moving forward, what do you think? I guess what would the priorities be? Would you say that recruiting is going to be more of an emphasis? The portal is going to be more of an emphasis? Is it a 50-50 split? Where do you think the staff is in the near future in terms of what they're going to prioritize with building and retaining the roster?
I think absolutely. You mentioned it, building the culture from the high school ranks is what they want to do, and especially along the lines of scrimmage. Offensive line is going to be a huge, huge priority for Auburn in the high school ranks. They believe that that's the most developmental position on the team. Sure, you can go pluck a guy or two from the portal if you're not happy with what you've got, but man, it's difficult for those offensive linemen to come in to learn new systems, new pass sets, So I think building this culture, you want to build it from the high school ranks. I think that's their plan. I think they didn't know that if they were going to be able to do that back in February, let's say, and they were expecting, hey, we might have to take a smaller high school class and go find some of these guys in the portal. And when those returns came back from these recruits, that, man, this is a good possibility we can get these guys. And I think they started to make that push because they believe that the culture piece, guys that want to be at Auburn, is going to come from the high school ranks. I think they're going to prioritize high school and then pluck from the portal when needed.
And along those lines, and you don't cover Alabama, but I'm curious, and I know Conrad is. It's been reported, and we talked to Rodney at Tighter Insider, and some people believing that 15 might be all that Alabama takes, that they sign retention, continuity, all of that good stuff. You see a lot of different recruiting around the Southeastern Conference. Any theory you'd like to throw out as to what you think is going on, or maybe the line of thinking and what Kalen DeBoer and that staff, in the direction they're going?
They're at Alabama?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I can only go off of what I know, and that's what, guys like Andrew Bone, Tim Watson, those guys report. But, I've been there before. I've been in their shoes before. It's when you're not winning a lot of recruiting battles, at least in the high school ranks, you're losing recruits to Auburn, to Tennessee, to LSU. There's something going on there because Alabama, there's no reason for that to be happening to them. And, Alabama just lost Cedric Simmons to Auburn. Cedric Simmons grew up in a house full of, Alabama fans dreaming to play for Alabama, and he chose Auburn. There's something's not right there. And it might be NIL. It might be, the offense, but I really do believe that that doesn't line up with what we're expecting from Alabama. I think they were 50-something in the class rankings, and I think that was a huge red flag for me last week when Auburn pulled Cedric Simmons from Alabama. When Alabama obviously was trying to get him. I don't know what they were willing to pay. I know Auburn wasn't willing to break the bank over this kid who's 5'10", and it doesn't really fit the mold that Alex Golesh is looking for in receivers. So, the easy explanation there is that they've got a lot of dead money, is what they call it now. A lot of dead money on the roster, and they want to keep that and be able to retain them at the end of the season, keep them out of the portal. So that's really there's one of two things, man. Alabama is either broke as hell, and we know that's not the case, or they're willing to wait and go to the portal and fill needs from the portal and also retain their roster. I'm leaning towards the second one because I know Alabama's not broke.
Yeah, I don't think they're broke. They're not Rutgers.
We hope not.
Not Texas Tech either, though.
No, that is no, they certainly are not. All right, last question for me, Jeffrey. Not to put you on the spot here, but just looking at what y'all are doing at On3, y'all have Auburn right now. They are 12th in the recruiting rankings. Some other places a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on where you look. If you're to call it right now, where do you think Auburn ends up when all is said and done in this recruiting class? Are we looking at a top 10 team? Is there any chance of getting up into the top 5? Where do you think they ultimately land at the end of the cycle?
No. I don't see Auburn getting top 5. I think top 10 is the ceiling for this class. I think top 15 is the basement. I really think this is a top 15 type year for Auburn. They're at 12. I think anywhere from 11 to 15 is where they're going to fall. I think it's most likely. I think just to get into that top 10, you're going to have to land. You're going to have to keep the guys that you've got. You're going to have to maybe get a couple of rankings bumps. Some of the guys I talked about earlier, some of those 3 stars maybe becoming 4 stars, maybe a Myson Johnson Cook becoming a 5-star, a Chance Gilbert becoming a 5-star. You're going to need a 5-star or 2 in that class to get into the top 10, and Auburn doesn't have that right now. You need to add a Carlos May. You're going to need to add a Tay Walden. You're going to need to add a MJ Evans, and so there are ways that Auburn can get in that top 10. Is it likely? Not really. I think top 15. I think anywhere from 11 to 15, and they would be tickled pink with that as far as numbers and as far as quality of athletes that they've got and culture guys. One of you mentioned it earlier. I think that's very big for Alex Golesh, setting the tone early in his tenure at Auburn to get guys in that locker room that want to be there, that are good culture fits, and want to build from that moving forward.
Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor, auburnsports.com, at the letter J, Lee AU Sports, there on X, part of On3 and Rivals. Jeffrey, we always appreciate the time. Thank you, very comprehensive, and we appreciate you answering or attempting to at least all the crazy questions we ask.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. You'll have a great day.
You as well. Jeffrey Lee joining us. All of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services. One of the big takeaways, what Jeffrey just told us, we'll discuss it next on 3 Man Front.
One Night with Steiny.
One Night with Steiny. Shout out, full send now.
Hey, bro, what's your name, bro?
Steiny, what the hell? We've been sitting here for like an hour together.
I don't know your name. What's your name, bro?
Steiny. I can't guarantee anything. All I can guarantee is that you're going to be entertained. I'm a professional. I'm here to interview.
So the whole interview, you didn't ask me what I like better, Burger King or McDonald's.
All right, and we are going to wrap up on that note. Thank you, Steve, so much. That was amazing.
Burger King.
One Night with Steiny.
One Night with Steiny, baby. What's up?
One Night with Steiny. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
This isn't your average podcast.
We threw like a spontaneous party out of nowhere. It was crazy.
This is Full Send.
Drake weekend in Toronto. That's like, imagine telling me that like 10 years ago. That's yo, you're going to rip with Drake for his album launch release party in Toronto. Like, I'm not passing that up for anything.
Join the party.
She went to Met Gala. He went to the game.
What is the Met Gala? Ridiculous.
I think it's an excuse to dress up like an idiot and go to a ball.
The Full Send podcast.
Oh, we're ready.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.